we start then with that growing unrest in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Our correspondent in Kinshasa has sent us this footage showing protesters today setting fire to parts of the Rwandan and the French embassies in the capital. Now, the embassies of the United States, Belgium and the Netherlands have also come under attack today. Police have fired tear gas at those protesters, and the French Foreign Ministry on the platform X saying the blaze at the French embassy is now under control. Well, the unrest in the capital comes as fierce fighting is raging in Goma, in the east of the country. Rebels from the M23 group, backed by Rwandan forces, entered the city on Sunday night. It is a major escalation in 3 decades of conflict in the region. Well, let's talk to Angela Diffley, our foreign editor, about all of this. She's been looking at developments and she's with me now. Angela, what more can you tell us, particularly, first of all, on what's happening in the capital, in Kinshasa?
It's very unclear. It's difficult to read how much of this is being orchestrated and how much of it is spontaneous. You mentioned there the embassies targeted, and of course the French embassy, the fire there is now under control. There are crowds in the street, as we saw there, blocking roads. It's clearly a situation where most people will want to stay indoors and out of danger. And there are, as we can see, armed groups with guns. It's very unclear beyond that what exactly is going on, who is behind it, and what it's hoped might be achieved. To go to Goma, UN agencies and the ICRC have been telling journalists today that there has been pillaging, raping, that a lot of humanitarian supplies have already been looted, that medical staff have been caught in the crossfire, as have patients, including babies, and that some medical and humanitarian infrastructure have been hit. It is a very dangerous situation, clearly, in Goma. They're worried as well that food supplies, water supplies are running extremely low. They've had to pause humanitarian aid deliveries and particularly food deliveries. A lot of UN staff evacuated yesterday and only the essential staff are still remaining there. There is this worry as well. The ICRC spoke to journalists and explained that there is a major laboratory in Goma in which there are samples of the Ebola virus. They're extremely concerned that that lab might be hit and that somehow the Ebola virus might escape with extremely dangerous consequences. As well as that, numerous civilians, it's being reported, have been killed in crossfire, as well as fighters on both sides and fighters from the 2 peacekeeping forces. There are South Africans, Uruguayans and Malawians who've already been reported among those killed in peacekeeping forces.
All right, Angela, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. We'll come back to Angela in a moment. But first, let's hear from Clément Di Roma. He's our correspondent covering developments for us on the ground today. He's currently in Gisenyi, which is on the Rwandan side of the border. Now, thousands of people have already fled across the frontier there, but the area has not escaped fighting. Clément, though, is reporting the situation somewhat calmer today.
Since mid-morning, the intensity of fighting on the border between Rwanda and the DR Congo has decreased quite a lot. I'm right now in downtown Gisenyi, a border town opposite Goma in the DRC, where M23 rebels supported by Rwanda have been fighting the Congolese army and its allies for control of the city for nearly a week now. The calm since this morning has allowed around 1,000 Congolese refugees to cross the border at Gisenyi and seek shelter in Rwanda, where authorities have set up a large refugee camp. The displaced people have met recounted scenes of horror in Goma and claimed, well, that several thousand others are still waiting there to flee the city. Many were searching for family members. And here in Gisenyi, in the town, activities have resumed when the sounds of bombs and gunfire stopped, and some shops are now reopening. But yesterday was a dark day for the city. Several shells and stray bullets landed on the Rwandan side on Monday, killing at least 5 civilians and injuring 35 others, according to Rwandan authorities. The Rwandan army also presented to the press more than 100 Congolese soldiers who surrendered and are currently being held in detention here in Gisenyi.
That was Clément Di Roma reporting for us from Gisenyi in Rwanda. So clearly a really serious situation, as you paint and as Clément does, Angela. What can be done now to try and stop this from getting even worse?
There's been a flurry of diplomacy. We had the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa yesterday, who called Paul Kagame, the Rwandan president. He said they agreed on the need for an urgent ceasefire. Kenya, which has been a mediator on many occasions in this conflict, has organised a meeting between Felix Tshisekedi, the DRC president, and Paul Kagame of Rwanda tomorrow. There is an African Union meeting going on today and a UN Security Council meeting a little later today. The DRC are saying, well, look, the UN Security Council meeting on Sunday delivered nothing but words, declarations, nothing concrete. We want concrete action. It should be said also, Rwanda has limited patience with the United Nations, which did not cover itself in glory at the time of the Rwandan genocide. Paul Kagame is very much his own man when it comes to his relationship with the United Nations. That said, there are things that can be done. A lot of people are pointing to the fact that in 2012, the M23, this rebel force with Rwandan backing, took over Goma, then captured the city and was in control. And Barack Obama picked up the phone and talked to Rwandan President Paul Kagame and managed to get the Rwandans to withdraw support from the M23. And the situation was relatively calm relatively quickly. Will Donald Trump do anything like that? It seems extremely unlikely. He spent a lot of time telling everyone he doesn't want to get involved in faraway wars. Nevertheless, this is very, as we have said so many times, a mineral-rich area. Coltan, which is used in car batteries, is in this area, as well as gold, tin, all manner of minerals. And there are a lot of business interests from so many countries around the world in this area. Should be said as well that the European Union recently gave 40 million euros to the Rwandan army because it wanted it deployed in Mozambique to help push back Islamists in Mozambique. France is particularly interested in that. In northern Mozambique, France has a Total Energy offshore plant and is grateful for Rwandan help in fighting Islamists there. So there are a number of different moving parts behind this story, as there always are. We'll wait to see what the UN Security Council say. We were saying yesterday that the DRC wants them to come out with strong sanctions, travel bans, freezing assets, that sort of thing, and stopping Rwanda exporting minerals, which the DRC says they often take from DRC and say are their own. That's what they say.
Angela Diffley, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's stay with this story now. I'm pleased to welcome to the programme Eujin Byun. She is a spokesperson for the United Nations Refugee Agency, and she joins us from Geneva. Eugene, thanks for speaking to us today. Look, I want to ask you first of all about the situation in Goma itself. We've been hearing reports that aid trucks are being looted, that there are limited medical supplies, food supplies, water supplies. What can you tell us about the humanitarian situation in the city?
What we're witnessing at the moment in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, especially in and around Goma, in North and South Kivu, is basically the worst, one of the worst humanitarian crises unfolding. This is not the new violence surging. It is a decade-long conflict, which civilians, once again, in the eastern DRC, they are bearing the brunt of escalating violence, and they are a victim of this violence. And then, as you hear from others, that millions and millions of people already displaced in South and North Kivu region, they had to forcefully displace within the region and as well as to neighboring country.
Indeed. And look, what can you tell us about your own staff, about the United Nations staff who are in Goma? Are you evacuating people now?
We do evacuate non-essential staff, as the Angela mentioned, but we do have our critical staff members still in Goma. But the problem and our biggest concern is that we don't have absolutely no access to those people in need. They are lacking food, they're lacking water, they're lacking basic services, and then yet all the humanitarian organization, we absolutely have no access, and there is a restriction on our access to those people in need. So their dire situation is getting worse by hour and by date.
So really serious situation then for the civilians stuck in Goma. You're saying effectively the United Nations not able to reach those people for now. What about those civilians who have now fled Goma? Some of them, as we were hearing, have crossed the border into Rwanda. Many more, though, are displaced in other parts of eastern DR Congo. Do you have a sense of the number of people who are on the move?
So if I give you the number that North and South Kivu itself hosted 4.6 million internally displaced person, and what we are seeing in January this year only that 500,000 people has already displaced. Those people, many of them, we don't have access, but what we are hearing from the refugees who cross the border, they're just wandering around place to place to just seeking the safety. And we are hearing the majority of women and children who are most vulnerable. And also we are hearing the bombing falling onto the IDP side, the internally displaced people's side. And then a lot of displaced people who are already vulnerable has to flee again without nothing, without having any opportunity to build their life again.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you about that, actually. You mentioned these attacks on centres for internally displaced people. This is from your own organisation, from UNHCR, reporting that this month bombs have fallen on camps for people displaced inside eastern Congo. I mean, what can you tell us about what happened then?
It is absolutely unacceptable that those places is the sanctuary of the most vulnerable. We designated spaces to protect and provide the protection. So those indiscriminate bombing and heavy artillery falling onto the IDP side, which already injure innocent, the displaced person, innocent civilian, and also took lives of innocent civilian, which is completely unacceptable. And UNHCR, together with other humanitarian agency, we're calling that this relentless violence and attack on those humanitarian sites has to stop, and then the both warring party has to prioritize to protect and safeguard civilian and displaced populations.
And look, a little bit earlier on, Eugene, just a final question for you. You emphasised, and that is obviously really important, that this is not a new conflict. Goma has been a hub for years, hasn't it, for people displaced from elsewhere in DR Congo. I just wonder now, given that we're seeing an even greater escalation in the fighting and the number of people who are going to seek your help, does the UN have the resources, have the money that it needs to help people?
So that's our the commune calling to international community. We shouldn't forget about this crisis. Of course, it has been a decades-long conflict, and then international community step up and then supported those people. But this is the moment that we should really step up our support to those people in need, as well as also that find the peace and a durable solution, so that those people who deserve the dignity and hope and sustainable life to find the stability and then bring the peace in the region.
Eujin Byun talking to us there from UNHCR in Geneva. Thanks very much.